All right, so let's take a look at some of the answers, or let's discuss some of the answers here rather. So question 1 is the digestion of carbohydrates is complete when they have been reduced to which form? So what state are carbohydrates in when they are fully digested? So yes, monosaccharides is correct. So they must be monosaccharides, excellent, before they can be considered fully digested and begin to be absorbed, okay? The second part of the question, when are proteins digested completely? So slightly more complex answer, but when are proteins digested completely? Okay, so I'm not seeing any response here. So let's see. So proteins, we said, could get, now first of all, so in short, proteins must be converted to amino acids to be fully absorbed, right? They must be amino acids. So just to answer the question, in short, they are fully or completely digested as amino acids. But just to throw this in here as well, we could get them into the cell, we said, as smaller peptides, right? And remember the mechanism by which we could get them into the cell. So across the apical surface. So not endocytosis. See, that's suggested here. So we had two options of getting proteins into the cell. One is if they were amino acids, and one is if they were smaller peptides. So we said smaller peptides could enter the cell by secondary active transport, very similar to glucose, very similar to chloride, kind of hitching a ride with sodium coming in. But as amino acids, they're going to go in by facilitated diffusion. Right now, if they entered as a peptide when they were inside the cell, they then need to be further broken down. So they were further catabolized into an amino acid, and then they could cross the basolateral surface also by facilitated diffusion. So the main takeaway there is that an amino acid can cross any surface of the cell by facilitated diffusion, but a peptide needs secondary active transport to get in, and then it can be further broken down and then get across the basolateral surface by facilitated diffusion. So a couple of options for proteins to get into the cell, but at the end of the day, they must be amino acids to be fully absorbed. Second question, are absorbed fats transported directly into the bloodstream? Are absorbed fats transported directly into the bloodstream? No, they're not. Excellent. No, they're not. Awesome. And then this should have been the second part of this question, but it says why or why not. So why are absorbed fats not transported to the bloodstream? So essentially we said that fats had this problem. They are not polar, so they don't interact with water very well. And so they're not going to be soluble in the blood. They're not water soluble. And so that's why we don't try to get them into the bloodstream. And so we must package them into these chylomicrons. So kind of getting into the next part of the question, what are chylomicrons? What is their role in absorption of fats? So this is how we repackage the fat in order to enter the lymphatic system. And so that's how we move them around to the general circulation via that lymphatic duct. And then the fourth question is, what role do bile salts play in digestion of fats? And bile salts help to emulsify fats. Okay, essentially just kind of mechanically break them down, not enzymatically. They are not enzymes. They do not digest in that way, right? This is a very specific term, emulsification, and not really digestion. Okay. So these are some answers or responses here. I'm actually going to capture this so I can share it with the recording today, just in case you missed anything. Let's see. Okay. And this is really how you should be responding to these checkpoint questions. We don't always have time to share answers in this amount of detail, but it's really important to be thinking about these checkpoint questions as ways to just regulate or kind of just monitor your own understanding of the information, right? So every time we get to a set of these questions, whether you're able to complete that fully in class or you can do it outside of class as homework, go back and really try to write down a response. Write down the details, put as many details as you like to kind of fill in the answer to the question, and really kind of capture everything you would have said as a way to summarize what you would have said in the lecture and just make sure that you understand it correctly.